Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. We are going in depth on the concept and logistics of reparations as they pertain to the culture of TNT. We do so with a Rapso man, cultural practitioner, and the voice of Carnival, Wendell Manwarren. Welcome, Wendell. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Greetings to everybody out there. Happy Carnival.
Thank you so much, and same to you. Let's start this conversation from the ground up, though. When you say reparations, what are you? Give me a definition within this Carnival context. Thank you.
Within the context of Carnival, reparation. Well, first of all, I have to say, I took a deep dive into SALT last year in preparation for the Black Consciousness Festival, and now SALT is a book that has always impinged on me. But it's a very difficult book, to the point where I wasn't even quite sure if I'd finished reading SALT, but I did. I read it a couple of times. And the idea of reparation looms very large in it, as manifest in the character Bango and his demand every independence that, we call for reparations be kept alive. And I kept thinking, how could we play that out in today's reality? And in the context, I didn't even think of applying it to Carnival, but as the season got closer and closer, and just watching the ground, watching the scenes, watching the temperature on the ground, the idea occurred to me that yes, Carnival was absolutely a space that required some kind of reparation because of just where Carnival came from and where Carnival is today. And there's a huge gap between, the people that gave us so many of the critical aspects of the Carnival and where they are in the whole context of things today, and the people that run the Carnival. And I'm not talking about the official side of things. I mean, the actual Carnival, which is not necessarily the official side of it. So there's still a work that's being articulated, but I thought it was appropriate to introduce the idea of reparation as part of the Kambule vibration.
And I like the fact that you speak to articulation being a process and still happening, as opposed to saying, okay, well, this is it, this is the silver bullet, it applies to everybody,
yeah.
But looking at how it is a work in progress.
I think that's fundamental to us developing as a society, as a people, building our civilization. This sense of absoluteness is wrong. It simply isn't, especially when it comes to something as nebulous and as gargantuan and diverse as the Carnival. There's a poem that I always cite in these scenarios called The 6 Men of Hindustan, Till Learning Much Inclined, who went to see the elephant, all of them were blind. And cut a long story short, each one touched a different part of the animal and thought that, it was something else. So all of them were in the right, they all were in the wrong. And I think when it comes to the Carnival and the greater society, many times we watch at things from our little perch and decide that it ought to be this or it ought to be that. But if we were to dig up any history, if we were to dig up any stories, if we were to get off that, our own little bias, we realize it's much more than just how we see it. So I think, yes, sometimes you have to take the time to try to articulate things rather than say, this is it. And I think this is one of those issues that is so big and so deep that I am not pretending to say, this is it. I'm saying this is the beginning of a discussion. And I think the Kambule is a space for that.
And with that in mind, and I want to use the term booming up history, and how do you boom up history and change that narrative so that the perch that persons stand on becomes a little wider, or you realize, wait, no, there's more to this elephant than the part that I touch it?
Yes, exactly. The concept of booming up history is very simple. It means being aware of, being informed by, being prepared to confront history, because history is not easy to confront. Stanley says it in that song. We have some history that we cannot face. There's a lot of horror and terror and trauma and pain and inequality and lots of things down the line. So that's why I say, when you decide to boom up history, is because you make an active decision to inform yourself of what is, so that I could be in a better position to say, oh, so that is how we end up so, rather than just the urban myths or the cliches or the things that they tell you about this one, about that one. So the booming up history is a very important process that we all have to engage in. And as a society, I think that's something that we definitely need to investigate more and more. And I believe that, portals such as these, TTT is a perfect opportunity for us to be booming up our history.
One of the reasons I asked that is about that narrative is because of the continuum of asking what comes before the thought that inspires the action or directs the action, in terms of like, where does that praxis start from?
Well, like I say, I start off the song this year by saying reparation time. But as after months and months and months of processing the idea of reparation as espoused by Earl, which was very complex and straightforward to a degree, as illustrated by Bango's march, his mission to sort of every independence gather all these various ethnicities together and march for reparations. That takes some time to distill and to impinge on your consciousness. And even as we're discussing it now, I'm forced to articulate it more and more. So it really is very much a process rather than just saying, I've arrived at this thing, perhaps. And that whole idea of booming up history is the fuel that sort of ignites the thing, The curiosity is the first thing, and the fuel of the information, so it could catch fire and transform the space.
And sometimes I want to ask, why you? And why you, in the sense that there's something that you say from, I think it's Martin Carter, the more the men
of our time we are, the more our time is. Why me? Because it fall in my lap, it fall in my garden. I didn't set out to say I went and find out what's the story and the history, and I was born in it and really couldn't care much about it except that I was born in it and my mother was in it, my father was in it, my sister, everybody around me was in it. And I didn't get into it until 19, I fell in with Mitchell, and that was it. I happened to fall down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and enter into the Carnival from a whole other perspective. And then doing Juve with Tricanal, that was our next rabbit hole, and then making music. So here I am now. I don't know why me.
But one of the things, though, is that you have brought people down the rabbit hole with you. And with that, we take a little piece of a TED Talk that you did before we come back to the conversation. Stay with us.
As a Rapso man and a Juve man, I begin by declaring, right now is the time to testify. Right now is the time to rectify. Rectify the rights and right the wrongs. Right now is the time to bring it down. Bring down the power, bring down the vibes, bring down the word and the rhythm and the rhyme. Right now is a war for we hearts and minds. Yes, this is the re-evolution time. So tell them, I am the change I want to see. I am the change I have to be. I am the power and the glory. I am the re-evolution.
Right now is the time to compromise. Right now is the time to rectify. Rectify the rights and right the wrongs. Right now we come out to bring it down. I bring down the power, bring down the vibes, bring down the word and the rhythm and the rhyme. Right now is a war for we hearts and minds. This is the re-evolution time, boy. Tell them I am the voice you can't deny. I am the one to testify. I am the one to take you high. I am the re-evolution.
And definitely we are speaking with Wendell Manwarren about the re-evolution, reparations, how they tie into us being ourselves. And you hear me citing names and calling people, and these are names that you use all the time and bring into this space, Wendell. And I want to do another one now, because we stand on the shoulders of giants and we walk where the giants walk, according to you. But bringing the name Lancelot Lane into the conversation, who are some of those people? What are some of the issues? What are some of the things that we need to tell to blow away in order to move closer to these types of reparations?
Well, Lancelot Lane, he laid the foundation. He didn't call what he did Rapso. Brother Resistance, peace be upon him, turned around and said that what you're doing is Rapso, and it inspired the entire movement. But that song, Blow Away, that basically lays down the thesis. If a man wants to set false standard for you to follow, to heed what you say. And the second verse, don't believe what foreigners do is better than you, because that ain't true. It's a mental block that hard to unlock. It's hard like a rock with it you don't walk. You live an illusion trying to be another man. So don't believe what foreigners do is better than you, because that ain't true. And I think, it's something we take for granted, but I think many times, Minchell says we come from a small island and we're afflicted with a small island security. So that sense that somebody from somewhere come and tell me this and tell me that, and they know better than me. Half the time that ain't true, not even half the time, most of the time that ain't true, especially when it comes to sort of the conditions on the ground here that that you haven't even taken the time to sort of process and articulate. And I think it's a constant abdication of the role that we have to play in building our society and our civilization, constantly reaching out to try to find what already working somewhere else and try and implement it here. Earl Lovelace speaks to it again, and it's just a movie where he talks about the selling of dreams, where, the powers that be in that novel were saying, we don't need to dream for ourselves, all the dreams are already out there. We have enough money and enough means to reach out and just buy whatever dreams we want. And that is patently not true. And that's why we have arts, that's why we have literature, that's why we have songs, that's why we have paintings, to help us go beyond the mundane and help us embrace some of these ideas that may be a little difficult to embrace, just in words, or, like just now, it was interesting. You asked me earlier, why me? And then I heard me saying, why me, when I say I am the revolution. And then I heard it in song. And you can see that progression from, a thought to something that's spoken, to something that's delivered in a heightened form, and the potential for its impact on other people. So I don't take our expression for granted. I think our expression is extremely powerful, and it literally has the power to change here, and change your heart, and change everything around you. And I speak in from personal experience. Lancelot Lane did that to me. And thank you, Dike Rostant, because there was a time when I was looking for Lancelot Lane material and it wasn't available. And you handed me a bunch of MP3s, and I heard some music there that I never could have imagined, a range and a breadth of music. So, I think my knowledge of Lancelot to that point was very limited, but you helped blow that wide open. And for me, that's why I try to share these things with others, because I know the impact it has on me.
Yeah, man, it's a school, and highfalutin school. But in terms of that, and selling a dream though, you all have sold yourself a dream, and you've taken people along for the journey, and therefore created a space for yourself in the process. Was a possibility of articulating, because we've been using the term articulate, was a possibility of articulating that type of methodology for others to do the same? Because the space might look a little different, but that might be their answer or their version of where they're holding the elephant, and there's a truth in that as well.
Yeah, the times change, conditions on the ground may change, but some things are eternal, that whole idea of someone seeing us and thinking there's something, these fellas have something. We were bringing a jury band at the time, and someone saw us, used to play jury with us, and they said, I think these guys could do something. And we resisted for a long time, but then initially gave in. And once we gave in, we came up with something that none of us could have imagined, and that was a song called Blue, and that was 25 years ago. And that literally transformed our lives. Now, we came into it totally different from how most people approach it. Most people have a desire and a dream to make music and make a hit. We had no such thing. We was just doing the thing and got an opportunity and seized it, and had to reverse engineer it now to kind of understand what it is we were doing. And here we are 25 years later, living a dream. And it's not a la-di-da dream, it's real dream. Sometimes it's a little nightmarish, sometimes it's a little, disoriented. But the mere fact that we've been able to survive this long together, we lost John Isaacs 3 years into our existence, 2000, John Isaacs RIP. But his presence, his energy, his spirit has always been there with us. And over the years, we've grown tremendously, because it's way more than just three of us now. We have real people on board with our dream, and every year I thank them for buying into our dream and investing in making it happen, because we couldn't do it without other people investing in it, their energy, their time, their attention, their love, their passion.
In certain ways, it feels as though you've been ahead of the curve, because you came at the curve from a different point, in terms of looking at it from the theatrical aspect, which is what a lot of individuals are doing now. So as opposed to hearing people talking about they're having a show or they're having an event, they have an experience.
That's kind of funny for us, you know, because in 2004, we innovated the Three Canal show. We decided we was going to do our own show. We had 3 years in Spectacular Forum, 3 wonderful years. We got an opportunity to perform in the tent, which is an institution, a carnival institution. We felt a sense of validation being accepted into that Calypso and Soca fold, although as we knew we were Rapso men, we were distinct. But after a couple of years of that, the tent folded, everything changed and rituals folded. And we decided, well, let me do a show. We come from theater, we know about mass, and now we're making music, we put it together. And we've been doing a show consistently, except since the pandemic. We did a show from 2004 to 2020. So that's no mean feat. So I'm always kind of like, what are people talking about innovating a show? We've encouraged other artists to do their shows. I'm not going to call nobody name, but several people who've gone on to do mega shows that have eclipsed our show in terms of size and stature. We sat down with them and said, this is how you do a show. And I'm very willing to do that. And I want to encourage people to do a show. I see a lot of people doing shows now, but it's just variety shows. They just have it's the same cast in the same venue, night after night, just have a different name. So, you know, their shows and then their shows. But I'm glad that people are doing, and that's the important thing.
And in this last minute we have, though, how do individuals engage with you to pick your brain, to get some of that knowledge, to just be part of the energy and possibly lend to something that is totally positive coming out of it?
Well, I mean, I think we're pretty accessible. Where we're based there in the Black Box on Murray Street is a pretty open space. Well, we will be getting back into that space pretty soon, because for the last 2 years, it was pretty quiet. But yeah, people will be surprised that, you know, you walk into the Black Box and I'm upstairs in the office and I can come downstairs and we could talk, or Roger might be around, or Stanton. We're not, you know, we don't live in a sort of Ivy Tower existence. We're accessible. I engage a lot of young people online too. Like I was working with a young person who wanted to become an actress in Broadway. And I said, well, me know the Broadway part, but I could help you with the fact that you don't have a Trini accent. And we did a lot of work and online, you know. I'm working with a young poet now who is trying to find his voice. We're doing a lot of work one-on-one, you know, unheralded. And so I'm accessible and I remain available. But only for serious people though. I don't have time to waste.
And with that, we want to thank you very much, seeing that you don't have time to waste. And we're going back in the archives a little bit into a live show, because it's not now you're doing this. So Wendell Manwarren, we want to thank you so much for the work that you and the entire crew are doing. And on behalf of TTT, the team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you for joining us.
If I believe that man in control, tell them